Welcome to Marked Close One, where we talk about how sales and marketing work together. We skip the theory and business school buzzwords to give you practical strategies you can use today to fill your pipeline and close deals faster. Let's get to it.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to Mark Close One. We are finally starting the back half of this 8-part series on this one, Mark.
All right.
So what I want to do in this particular episode, I want to dive into this. So we have continuously been talking about the ideal persona, persona about this, the ideal persona about, in regards to just different targeting. But with this episode, I named it Wrong Persona, Wrong Offer, Marketing to People Who Were Never Going to Buy in the First Place. And where I was kind of initially thinking about with this one is, can you tell me about a time when after a customer segment that looked great on paper, but when you actually tried to put that into practice, that it was just an absolute nightmare?
Yeah, I had an idea at one point in time. I have this piece of software that works amazing for mechanics. And I know that I can put this piece of software in place for a minimal amount of money, and it makes a mechanic kind of a maximum profit on the other side. It basically is an appointment setting program for them without going into a lot of details. And I can guarantee that it'll work. And I grew up in a mechanic's house. And so I'm like, man, I know these guys. I know how they tick. I know how they talk behind the scenes. I know their pain points. I can talk transmissions and carburetors, and, I can keep step with all that. I kind of look like a mechanic. So I'm like, all right, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go after mechanics. I'm going to have this as my primary offer, and I can do this super reasonably. And so I put together the entire campaign. I built out the software. I built a website for it and put together a logo and a whole thing. And I started making phone calls, and I realized right away I had the right offer. I had the right product, but I could not get the mechanic on the phone. And so I started asking, I went to a couple of mechanics that were my customers. And I started asking some questions about this, and they said the same things to me. They said, all of them had this story of like, the last thing I want is some marketing guy calling me on the phone, telling me I got to put together a piece of software that I don't understand, and I'm just too busy. I'm putting an engine in the car. I'm just never going to answer the phone. And if I do answer the phone, I'm going to be in a terrible mood because like I really had something else that I was doing. So the
You're
problem,
burning time.
yeah. So that means that the front office person is answering the phone, but they don't have any decision-making power in most of those shops. Right. It really is the guy under the hood that has all the decision-making power. He's got all the knowledge, and he's the one running the shop, but he doesn't want to talk to me. And even though I could really help him, I could probably make him tens of thousands of dollars. He doesn't want to talk to me. And so I found that over and over and over again. I had to say, I got the right product, but I have the wrong person. This is too difficult of a vertical for me to sell to.
Dude, that's a perfect story on this one. So like my first question I had for you, and I think it already kind of dials into what you were initially alluding to at this. Like, how do you define the actual correct ideal customer persona in a way that's useful versus it just simply, looking good on paper? Because I think that's a perfect example of it, of where you would have that mechanic. You knew that they were going to be a great fit from, I don't know, they make good money, they're busy, they're competitive, but you also saw from putting it into practice that it didn't work.
Yeah, that's right. I think first of all, you got to know something about the industry. If you don't know anything about the industry, it's really hard to speak that person's language. John, you saw me in one of my elements the other day. One of my elements is nonprofit world. And man, I tell you what, I'm in my element, nonprofit world. I know exactly the language that they use. I know the things that are important to them. I know how to address their various pain points. I know the thing that's going to move them emotionally towards a sale. I just know it inside and out. There's a couple other industries that are like that for me. But I think that when you find that you're in an industry that you don't know anything about, and if there's people in that industry that you really don't like, you just see them just as, I don't know, like an easy catch, but you don't really like these people. It really is hard to see that as a vertical that you want to pursue, with any kind of intentionality. I had somebody say, well, one of my business coaches said to me once, you should be working with kind of people that if you found yourself at a weekend conference with them, that sounds like a good time to you. Like, you know who they are. You like to hang out with them. You kind of are part of that group. But if you think about spending a weekend with these folks, and that sounds like the worst thing imaginable, you're probably in the wrong vertical.
I like where you're going with this one. So I've got a follow-up question for you. In that regard, what are signs when you're attracting the wrong persona?
I think first of all, you hate them all.
Sorry, you kind of set yourself up on that question. So slinging it right back at you.
And you know what? Like every sales and marketing department, we all deal with people that are like, man, if I never have to deal with that person again, that'd be awesome.
Right.
We were talking to a spa company the other day, and she was going to go through her list. We're going to retarget some of her old clients. She goes, before I give you that list, I'm going to go through the entire list and make sure those people who I really don't ever want to talk to again are off of that list. We don't ever want to have them on the phone. We don't ever want to show up to their house again. We do not want to talk to these people. So I think that's true with absolutely every industry, that there are just certain people that go, man, we just don't really want to deal with these types of customers, for our business anymore. So I think that's a sign that you have mostly those. Every time the phone rings, when you pick up the phone and you see the number on it, you're like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person. If that's all your customers, you got the wrong people, right? I think the other thing is that they're just a drain on you. That they're high demand, they're low profit. There's, as you say it so eloquently, John, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And
well, I'm glad it's not only from the sales end, because I've talked to a lot of people where there is a very short list of people who are like, I hope they're happy, I hope they're healthy, and I hope I never, ever have to meet with them again.
I've had a few of those, man. I think in this business,
it's not a sales thing only, okay?
No, I think there's just in this business, there's always those people that are like, man, I cannot deal with these people anymore. And other folks are like, man, I wish that all of my customers were like this company. They're wonderful people. I love working with them. I love what they're doing. I'm as passionate about their business as they are. And I can really do my best work when that's the vertical I'm sitting in.
That makes sense. Makes sense. I'm interested in this from a marketing perspective, because I feel like I have just a general viewpoint from a sales end.
Yeah.
But kind of going back to that ideal customer persona, going to the direct messaging that a company is going to have looking for prospects and leads. How do you map like pain points to messaging without like sounding like every other company? We were kind of talking about this in this last episode that we had, of where it's messaging laziness of we are for all of your X needs.
Fill in the blank needs. Yeah.
But on the other side of it as well, is you're going to have a bunch of companies that we're going to say that we are innovative, that we're unique, that we are fast, that we are, add cliche word. From honing in on your ideal customer persona, but then also directly marketing to it, how do you set yourself apart from just the rest of the noise?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And there's so many different answers to that question. I want to address the first thing first, that the way you make money in a business is always through innovation and efficiency. It's always a combination of those two things. But coming right out and saying we are innovative or we are efficient is not necessarily a great way to actually address the pain point. There's usually a better way of addressing that pain point. And so,
because every other competitor that they have in that space is doing the exact same thing. If you've got a 95% customer satisfaction, more than likely the person down the road has a 95% customer satisfaction too.
That's true.
You're focusing on those particular things, but it's not really a differentiator. Sorry for interrupting on that one, but I think you were hitting right on it.
Yeah, and because I think that's part of it. It's like we don't want to ignore that efficiency and innovation are important. They're actually really, really important. And in my world, efficiency and innovation are becoming all the more so at the forefront because of what's happening with technology, with AI, and some of these tools that are making things more innovative, and they're making it faster for us to get production done. But of course, if we lean into those things even too far and we take out the strategy and the theory behind what we're doing, it can lose its soul in the process. And then it just becomes noise yet again. And I think that in some industries, if you use certain words, you just have to know that industry inside and out. Some industries, if you use a lot of corporate jargon, it's going to turn people off. Other industries, if you don't use corporate jargon, it's going to turn them off. In the nonprofit world, if I use a bunch of business jargon, it turns them off. There's just I think it gets down to you have to know your industry, and you have to know who you're going after, and you know how to talk to the things that are the pain point for them every day. So, in my world, that pain point can be just that they're too busy. to do what they know that they need to do. That could be a pain point. It could be that technology is going out there faster. It's developing faster than they're able to keep up with. And that's a pain point. It could be that they have gotten, I'll use a nice word. They've gotten taken advantage of by other people in my industry, which happens a lot. And now they're suspicious. Why should I trust you? Guys like you have told me a lot of promises that don't come true. And so it just really depends on what pain point that industry has, and then to really hone in on that thing and to go after it intentionally. And because I think that most companies, now marketing companies are a little bit different because we think about this a lot. Most companies don't go through the process of really understanding what sets them apart. And so they just have lazy taglines, where, we're your friend in the mechanic business. We're for all your mechanic needs, mechanicking and more. I mean, it's just like they just don't really think about what they're positioning. Let me give you a resource. The best resource I've ever read about this is called The 3-Word Rebellion. And the 3-Word Rebellion is an amazing tool. It's a book that you go through, and it takes a while to go through it. And it goes through it, and it really asks you as a business owner, what are the things that got you into this business? What are the things that you're passionate about? Then how do you communicate that in 3 words or less? So, well, not really less. It's hard to go less than 3 words. And then to do that, in a way that addresses a problem, but also gives an emotional component to that problem. So after I went through that, my tagline for my business is excellence deserves attention. And because I knew that what I was dealing with was people that were very, very good at what they did, they deserve to be out there and known more than they are out there right now, but they're not. And they're frustrated by that I'm the best in town and nobody knows that I exist. And that my whole job is to be a megaphone. I know that's my job, is to be a megaphone. Right. Those 3 words made it so I was able to communicate what I do every day that quickly. And then every time I put together collateral, every time I'm in a business meeting, I can just say, Ablaze Media, because excellence deserves attention.
I like where you're going with this one. I'm going to add a little bit more to the question for this one, Mark. So you were talking about messaging that stands out. We're marketing to a particular persona. But what about from like structuring offers? Do you provide different levels in regards to like buyer readiness?
Yeah, we do. Now, what I have found, and this might be true in other industries too, like I just had a company come to me. They were an excavation company, and they needed business cards. They needed some yard signs. And I didn't go right for the jugular on that and say, well, I won't even work with you unless you give me a monthly retainer. I said, okay, let me put together your business cards and your yard signs. And I know that I happen to make really nice business cards and really nice yard signs. I know that ours look as good, if not better, than everybody else's out there. So I'm going to deliver on those. They're going to get really nice looking artwork from me. I finished their logo. I did some things that probably was a little bit more than I got paid for. And I pushed that out to them. I still made a little bit of money on it. And then immediately I jumped on, this was yesterday. I jumped on and said, okay, were you happy with what you guys got? Yeah, we're super happy. It looks really great. Okay, you let me know when you're ready for the next step. You let me know when you're ready for the website, for the SEO campaign, for the Google business optimization. You let me know about those things because you've seen that I'm an expert at what I do. And if you think I knocked it out with a business card, wait until I get your website done. And so I've gotten a lot of business that way over the years. I would say most of my larger customers came in at that level, at the business card, brochure, maybe a small website kind of level. And I'll tell you, the trouble with that is that sometimes we've gotten stuck there to where now I've become this company's business card guy, and that's not what I want to do. And so some of those companies have had to say, hey, if we're not only going to do business cards, I really can't continue. And some of them say, well, fine, we'll find another business card guy. We'll go to Vistaprint. Like, okay, it's not a big loss for me. So all that is say, I think coming in with a smaller offer sometimes can lead to the bigger offers.
I like that. I got a follow up for you.
Yeah.
So, being in the tech world for 20 years, sounds crazy saying it that long.
Yeah, but I know you're so old.
When do you determine when do you provide like a low friction offer versus, in my case, it would be like either providing a low friction offer or going directly into a demo. And in your instance, and I'm trying to, kind of cue this up for you, but when would you say that here's a low friction offer versus saying it's not worth my time and it's not something that my business is able to assist with, you need to go to Vistaprint. Do you have a
Yeah.
kind of an indicator for, or what is a good rule of thumb for that?
I know for my company, there are a few kinds of companies that we do business with really well. And I know they're just a good source for us. And for those kinds of businesses that are good, that are good like customers for us, a lot of times I'll go in with like, this morning, I offered a guy that I'm pretty sure I can work with him and I can move the
Mhm.
needle for him. I offered him a free audit on his website. And then what I'll do with that is I will audit his website. I got the software for that. And then I'll record a video that goes through all the results on the audit, and I'll tell him how to do it himself, whole time knowing that he won't, because it's just time consuming. He won't have time for it. And he'll realize, yes, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's got this great chart and graph. Because I mean, tell you what, man, graphs, they're huge. He gives us some pie charts on there and a couple of squiggly lines, and we're like, yeah, oh man, that's going up to the right, or it's going down to the left. Anyway, so I'll put that together for him. I'll talk him through it, and I'll be able to show to him, yeah, hey, I really do know what I'm talking about. And that will tee me up for being able to get some of that larger work. But I wouldn't do that for certain other verticals that I go, man, there's no chance here of this turning into anything. I wouldn't waste my time with that, if that makes sense. I don't want to give too many specifics because every industry is so different.
Well, it is. Well, how about this one? So my last question that I have for you, let's pull it out of your marketing world directly and more in regards to like what you look for when you're assisting your clients. Like, what are the particular proof points that actually matter to an ideal, customer persona? I mean, is it logo? Is it case studies, numbers, testimonials, general business process? What do you see as usually the major drivers?
I mean, John, you're gonna know that what I'm gonna say. It's like a little bit of all this stuff.
You're going to say it's going to depend.
Yeah, well, no, it's just kind of a little bit of everything.
I missed.
Yeah, and it depends.
Sorry,
done. I can tell from a mile away somebody's taking an AI tool and throwing a logo together, and that it really hasn't been thought through by somebody who is thinking about how that squiggle represents their brand, and then how their brand actually fits together. And that does communicate that either you have a cohesive message, you know who you are as a company, or you don't. So it does start not just with a logo, but with the branding of the company, the messaging of the company, and that brand being both, a visual element and written elements together, and for that matter, a whole purpose that ties it together in the background. But on the logo side of that as well, if I'm looking at a white label provider, so in my world, a white label means somebody who does the work for me, who I take the credit for. They call that a white label partner. So if I'm looking for a white label partner to help me I do want to see who else they've worked with. If I see they've worked with some other really notable agencies, be like, okay, that develops some trust. And if they can put that logo on their website, say we work with all these other people, and that's true for a lot of other folks. Case studies are a big deal. I try to work with white label companies that can give me case studies showing that they really do know what they're doing and that they're able to move the needle. And then people look at us for our case studies to make sure that we know what we're doing. Yeah, certainly the numbers are important. Testimonials are huge. Google reviews are huge. Again, that all just builds trust. And then the process is really, I wouldn't say the process as much as have you identified a problem that is common in that industry, and you have a solution, a workable solution to that problem that maybe nobody else has thought of before. That's where you really have gold, right? Man, I got this solution that nobody else has. So I'll talk about, just before I kind of move on, I'll talk about my wife. She runs this company, a franchise called Learning RX. And they do some cognitive development with people, and there's nothing like it. She has identified issues with autism and ADHD and some of these other cognitive, learning differences, and she's able to put a student through that process to help them overcome some of those things and to increase their executive functioning.
Amazing.
And there's nobody else in town that has their same process. She has a unique process, and once people understand what it is, they go, there's nobody else who does this. And so, yes, the process sells itself. But let me ask you this, John. Who's a good customer for you, man? I mean, like when you got somebody that it's just that when you look at your phone and the person calls, you're like, oh, I got to take this, man. I can't wait to talk to. I love talking to this guy. Like, what's that guy like? The guy who's really a great customer that you really have a great rapport with. Is there something they have in common, all those customers that you love to work with?
Well, I think there's there's going to be a lot of different answers to that one. I would say, Mark, thanks for passing a loaded question to me. I think obviously there's going to be people that you'll just have affinity towards that you just appreciate and like working with. To put more of the director of sales hat on it, I think it kind of depends on a couple different things.
It depends.
Kind of keeping with the general conversation in regards to like an ideal customer.
Mm.
I was always, when I had my account executives that were receiving leads and they were starting to work them and going through the discovery process and stuff, you could kind of see like particular indicators. You might be able to see industry. You might be able to determine by company size if this was going to be something that was going to be ideal to work for. Urgency and different triggers in that regard. They might either be things that might be happening right away, and that you're going to at least have a quicker sales process, and other ones that you might be able to indicate by company size and the industry that they're in, that you might be able to poke on those particular triggers because they might be aware of them and are not seeing the same urgency involved. They might not understand that it is as big of a problem, or it might be something that's kind of just in their future thought, but it's not today's, person's problem.
Mm-hmm.
But those were kind of the things that we would typically see there. From a decision process, you could kind of normally, depending on the size of the company, the industry that they were in, if this was going to be either departmental or organizational kind of thing, you could kind of determine the direction that it was going to go. But I would say that would probably be the way to look at it. From a personal side, again, you got the affinity of the people that you work with. You know that they're going to be somebody that can come through in the clutch and they can go through the process and make the decision. But from like that director hat, there's kind of indicators that are there to be able to determine if this is going to be a good customer or not.
What about the red flag? What about when somebody books in your calendar and you're like, this is never going to work? Or you get in that first 5 minutes of the phone call and you're like, I'm going to end this right now. Like, how do you know you've seen a red flag and you got to get past it?
Well, it was actually I had a sales call 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And one of our SDRs booked the meeting. I decided to take this one. And the very first question, I was like, all right, how can I help? What do we got going on? Tell me about your situation. I don't know why I took this meeting.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know why you took this meeting either. Here's what I do and the problems that we serve in the industry that I work in.
Yeah, right.
Is any of this valid or viable in your current situation? No? Okay.
All right. See
Those
you
would
later.
probably be the easiest ones to be able to see. I think others that might be a little bit further and a little bit harder to understand is, do they even understand the problem that they're running up against? If you're really starting that discovery process and they don't even have the single idea of the problem, and they might not know the solution, but if they don't even know the problem, they just say that my boss called. Obviously, you don't have the decision maker on the phone because they're not aware of the current, circumstance that company is in for me to even be able to provide a solution to.
You remember that call, John, that
I've had so many of those, man. I've had so many of those.
I remember that call we were on, that this lady had presented to me like she was working with a lot of contractors. She was a bookkeeper and she really wanted to expand her business. And I said, okay, this is my kind of person, because she can be a gateway to a lot of people who I work with, and she doesn't do what I do, and she's got access to them. So I put you on the call, and we start talking to her, and it turns out she's got one customer. No.
I don't remember the exact question that I asked for that one, but it was like, what are you trying to well, I've got one customer and I would like 3.
Oh my gosh. Why are we talking? Go to a chamber of commerce meeting, get 2 more customers.
Right.
I mean, you're not ready for us yet.
We're talking about like monthly 4-figure, like solutions and stuff. You want to go from 1 to 3 customers. Obviously that's not a good fit, but yeah. And that's one of those things that it does happen. It could either be something from the marketing that, caught the person's interest. It might just be that you had an SDR that was overzealous and just wanted to book a meeting, but didn't kind of go through the process to actually determine if this was, an ideal customer for you. But I think we've kind of all gone through those, and you just kind of have to end the call quickly in those instances.
Yeah, there's better things to do, and sometimes you just can't milk it for anything more than it is. Well, now what about this? I think this is a struggle that every sales guy has. I hear it. I hear it all the time. And usually the struggle comes with the boss coming in and raising the prices. And he says, "Look, you were selling it at this price. Now I think you can sell it for a little bit more." And there's that moment of panic that a lot of sales guys face.
Right.
And they're like, "I don't think that anybody's going to buy at that price. They were barely
Mhm.
buying at the last price." Now, how do you know that that's the case, that it's just too expensive and you're priced out of the market, or you just didn't find the right buyer? And really, it's that you were aiming too low, that you were aiming with the wrong kind of buyers, and you got to just aim for a different kind of buyer. How do you deal with that tension as a sales guy?
Another very loaded question on this one, man. Let me break this into a couple different ways because I've got a lot of thoughts to it, and I don't think there's just a single simple answer in this regard. I've been a new account executive to different places. I've hired a lot of new account executives, and you kind of all go through that general feel if you're actually selling a service that has a pretty hefty price tag to it. Um, More than likely, your first couple clients you're going to sell poorly to. You're still trying to determine of like what are the major trigger points that are in those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that are really going to be able to push this deal forward? If you look at it from just kind of a statistical standpoint, if you're only going to close 1 in 4 of your like labeled sales opportunities, you've got even a lesser chance of closing that deal from like an initial meeting conversation. And I think what you see is you see a lot of times of where the customer just says, "Oh, that's too expensive. That's too expensive. That's
Mm-hmm.
too expensive." In those instances, you haven't actually hit that ideal persona that the company is truly looking for. And then once you do, you're kind of starting to be able to calibrate and be like, okay, these are the people that I'm not really seeking for. These are the ones that I'm wanting to get them to a decision and get them to know and get them off my phone as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the particular customers that I can really have a true benefit for.
Mm-hmm.
My service, my product or whatnot is able to actually solve this particular problem that they're coming across.
Mm. Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
would say that that's the first part. The next side of it is if you've got an account executive that either doesn't understand their product, doesn't perform a good discovery, they're not able to educate their customer and so on, you're going to continuously decrease that probability of that deal closing. And so that then becomes very introspective of where that account executive needs to up their game. They need to be able to understand what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing. They need to be
Mm-hmm.
able to understand what their product or service is accomplishing, and that particular list goes on. The next thing is once an account executive is able to get better established and they really understand where their product or service fits in the market,
Mm.
then now they can start digging into additional use cases, ad hoc use cases, and so on. And because you're able to solve more problems than even maybe what that initial prospect came in on, you're continuously increasing that probability of that deal closing because you're able to not only solve X, but Y and Z as well. And I would say the last one on that one, kind of maybe to wrap it all together, is that as long as you've got an account executive that understands where your product fits, why it's beneficial, it might not be the most expensive, it might not be technically the best that's in the market, but you have your ideal place that you fit and you're able to accomplish particular tasks and then be able to you know portray that and explain it to the prospect. That's going to be where your highest probability of like closing those deals are. I know that's kind of a really long-winded route to get there, but I think those are kind of the major things that are making sure that it's priced appropriately, but you're providing the value that represents why it costs what it costs.
Okay, well, that brings us to like sizing things properly.
Mm.
There's another tension between sizing something too small and this is maybe, because I'm not primarily a sales guy. This is maybe one of my problems. I tend to give people a bargain and I'm not realizing I'm leaving money on the table.
Yes, you do.
I tend to do that. But then on the other hand, if you price it too big, well, sorry, if you price too big, you'll lose it. But then sometimes if you price it too small, it wrecks delivery on it. It's just not a big enough
Mhm.
thing to actually move the needle for a customer. So how do you deal with right sizing a product for a customer?
This is again, I think it's that game that we've been talking about for these last 4 episodes and even on this one as well. It's it's the right hand, left hand between sales and marketing.
Mm.
You've got to be able to determine that ideal customer, but you also have to be able to establish and provide and present the value of what you are serving. Now, if it's one of those of where it's being priced out simply because of either the customer can't literally afford it,
Mm.
or they don't see that there's enough value in it, you've really got to look introspectively on that one of like, okay, is this something on the sales end? Is it training related? Is marketing, targeting companies that are too small? Are they going after something that's not really that ideal size that might be able to handle that financial burden? Um, I think that becomes a conversation between the two departments of really trying to hone in of what specifically is there. Now, on the opposite side, if you have it where, you're underpricing yourself, I think that is the most expensive thing that can happen. Like you and I have had several
Mhm.
conversations
Yeah,
with
that's right.
people that are looking at their sales funnel. They're wanting to get additional leads that are coming in the door. They might have set themselves with a budget that's far lower than what they need, but for
Mhm.
some reason they still have the expectation that that's really going to move the needle.
Right.
I completely disagree in that regard, and so what will happen is that they're going to now start siphoning some of their marketing dollars, but it's not actually bringing in enough leads for them to sustain, for them to grow, whatever it is that the particular goal that they're trying to accomplish. That's the reason why I want to present a solution that I know is going to be able to solve the actual problem that they're having.
Mm.
If they don't think that it's, priced right, or you think it's too expensive or something like that, I think that then becomes a discussion that they have to have internally. All I can do is I can just present the value and the reason why my pricing is the way that it is, because I want to see them succeed.
Now, as a sales guy, that the overwhelming majority of people you talk to are probably going to say not right now for one reason
Yeah,
or the other. I mean, some companies it's 1 in 10 make a decision, some it's 1 in 25, some it's 1 in 100. It really depends on
right.
on the company. So that means that as a sales guy, you're going to hear no a lot. Now, how do you tell if that no is just a statistic that you have to get past, or when that no is identifying an objection that keeps on coming up over and over and over and over and over again, and you go, well, you know what? I actually think I need to address that objection that they have, because I think that they're for real on that, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to get past that with most companies.
Right. That's that's a good question on that one, Mark. And I really think it depends. It's one of those that it's kind of by feel. I actually just wrote a blog on the Mark Close One website about this one. That's, I think, going to post tomorrow. But what it was in regards to was really kind of settling and seeing when you're going through that process, you need to look within the department first. Is it training related? Is discovery happening properly? Do they have proper follow-up? Once you can just check all the boxes and make sure that sales is handling the sales process accordingly, then it usually needs to be thrown to the other side of the fence. Is it something that's more marketing related or so on? If does something need to be adjusted? But
Mm,
if nothing is really happening from that end within the organization, is there any external situations that are taking place? I
mm,
mean, the political times that we live in right now, it
hmm.
seems like a lot of different businesses are kind of shifting or living day by day just because of like what's actually going on externally from them.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think once you kind of make sure that you have a clear picture, it's then going to allow that organization to be able to pivot, to be able to provide a lower cost offering to whatever it is that they determine is going to be the best course forward for them, to be able to keep afloat and be able to continue growing.
Yeah, and I think that you have to get to a place where both your sales, marketing department, your management are all in a place where they go, hey, this kind of customer, we are happy to walk away from them because that's never going to be a good fit for our company, and we're good with
Right.
that. And other customers that we look at them and go, we shouldn't let that one walk away so fast, right?
Right.
Right.
Exactly. And I would say, would you consider that we're in agreement with that? I mean, there's some of them of where you simply need to walk away from the deal just because they're not going to be ideal for your customer persona. It's not going to be
Mm.
ideal for a person that's going to be able to grow within your organization and be able to, to continue bringing revenue. Mm. But on the opposite side,
Yeah.
there's other ones of where it's like, okay, let me provide a low friction offer because I feel like there's opportunities for this one to grow.
That's right.
Would you say that we're in agreement there?
Yeah, I would. There are certain customers that come to me. A lot of times they'll come to me trying to market a product that nobody's been successful marketing before. And I look at the product and I go, that's because it's an unmarketable product. And no matter what I do, we're not going to be able to market it. I'm sorry. And I know that I have to walk away from those and not feel bad about it. Like, I can't help you. And I don't think anybody else can either. You have a weird
That's
product.
exactly it. Well, and it's what I always looked at as well, is that I would rather have no customer than a bad customer, because I don't want to have it where my time is spent, trying to make a bad fit happy. By
That's
that
right.
time, then I'm literally just going against my own revenue opportunities, because I'm trying to, fit a square peg in a round hole kind of situation.
That's
I
right.
would rather have it of where I'm finding that ideal customers that are able to see the value in what I'm providing, and, are growing as well, which means that I might be able to, grow that customers from a revenue source as well. There's a lot of different things on there. What I would say a lot of small businesses do is that they simply focus on anyone versus making sure that they actually have that correct customer in place, so that they are setting themselves up for growth.
Yeah, because it's just not true that you can meet everybody's needs in any one
Exactly.
industry. You need to know whose needs you actually meet. Well, John, we're getting a little low on time, so I think it's time for you to take us out of this thing.
Right, I agree on that one. So hopefully everyone, this was definitely just kind of a conversation going back and forth from a sales and marketing perspective, like looking for what to identify with that ideal customer persona. Mark, again, thank you for joining on this one. We are on that back half of this list, but you all have a wonderful one and take care.
All right, we'll see you later, man.